Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest SVG Europe Women virtual Wellbeing event. I'm Heather McLean, editor at SVG Europe, and I hope all you and all your families are very well at this time. Today we're once again joined by our special guest speaker, Wellbeing coach Sarah Swanton, who today is going to take us through our session called Motivation, Inspiration and Managing Change, how to focus on inspiring, motivating and managing change for yourself and others in the face of adversity. As we all know far too well by now, staying motivated today is no easy task, whether as an individual or someone charged with also inspiring others in a team. In today's session, Sarah is going to help us learn how to stay motivated, inspired, and to manage change in spite of today's challenges for yourself and for others, personally and professionally within sports broadcasting. Without further ado, please say hello to Sarah. Yay, quiet.
Hello.
Hello, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back.
That's it. See you again. Everyone loved you last time, so here we are. Right,
Oh.
I will now hand over to you. Thank you,
Okay,
Sarah.
thanks very much. So, morning, everyone. I am just gonna share my screen with you, and yeah, let's get into this. So, this one is, as Heather said, motivation, inspiration, and managing change. How to focus on inspiring, motivating and managing change, not just for yourself, but others, particularly in the face of adversity. So in this hour that we're going to spend together, I'm just going to talk for the first sort of 20 or so minutes, and then we're going to move on to the bulk of it, which will be Q&A from you guys. So what you're going to learn is the one thing, I'm going to try and make this as easy as possible, the one thing that gets in the way of people feeling motivated, people feeling inspired, resilient, which is what we need a lot of right now, and feeling adaptable and willing to change. So that's the first thing. And then I'm going to talk you through a really simple but highly practical framework that can help you really create the conditions for you, and if you run a team or an organization, create the conditions for you to really thrive and do well at work and in life, no matter what. And when I say no matter what the circumstances are out there. So let me just put my timer on so I stick to time. And then, as I said, we'll move on to thoughts, comments and Q&A. So the first thing, the first starting point is what actually gets in the way. So if you think about moments, perhaps over the last, where are we now, month 8 of all of this, there will have been moments where you've perhaps woken up in the morning and thought, I just can't be bothered with today. I'm not feeling it. I'm not inspired to do anything. And I certainly don't want to deal with challenging circumstances today, or something along those lines. And particularly if you run a team as well, when you feel like that, it's very difficult to help other people, to move other people into action as well. So the good news is, with all this, I said I wanted to keep this really simple. There's actually something that all of us as human beings have in common. And when you understand what that means, motivating yourself and other people becomes so much less complex and much more simple. And that thing that we all have in common is that we have primal human needs. And that's what I talk about when I say a framework we're going to work through, is all of us as human beings, when we come into the world, we have programmed into us, if you like, a set of physical and emotional human needs. I'm not going to go too much into the physical. Physical is water, hydration, we need sleep, we need to exercise our muscles, all of that. I'm more focused on the emotional human needs. So this is much more a framework for mental health and well-being. And it works on the idea that when we're feeling well, when we are getting all of our human needs met, we are able to deal with whatever is out there, that we're able to deal with difficult circumstances no matter what. And so those human needs there's 9 altogether, and I'm going to run through them initially and then we'll unpack it a little bit in a moment. But at a glance, a sense of safety and security. So humans need to feel safe, they need to feel secure. In a work setting, what that means is they need to feel like, we all need to feel like we have, that we have a sense of, you know, our job, we're not going to lose our job within the next few weeks. And we're going to come on to this in a moment. They need to feel like we need to feel like we have autonomy and control to our day, in our jobs. We need to feel like we are giving and receiving attention. Now, that's a really interesting one. It's got to be balanced, not just giving attention, but we need to feel like we're receiving attention as well. The need for connection and intimacy, sense of community, sense of status. It's a really important one. And we need to feel like we have privacy and reflection time to ourselves. And we need to feel like we're being competent and we're getting stuff done. We need to feel like we're achieving in the world, and the need for meaning and purpose. So that's a glance. But as I said, when every single one of those human needs, and you'll get a copy of that as well, so you don't worry if you didn't write it all down. But when each of our human needs are being met appropriately and in balanced and healthy ways, then we do well. We naturally flourish, we thrive, we're being the best version of ourselves, if you like. But here's the thing, right? When one or more of those human needs are not being met, this is what happens. We get demotivated, we get frustrated, we get stressed out, angry, irritable. And if that is allowed to go on for too long, then it can tip over into anxiety. It can tip over into depression, even burnout. And so if you look at this again, it's really interesting to see what's been happening over the last 7-8 months. A sense of safety and security. Well, that people are waking up each morning wondering whether they've got a job this side of Christmas. You know, that it's just been wiped out, that sense of feeling safe and secure in their role. The need for autonomy and control. And if you think about that, many more people have become, they're remote working, but there are some companies who are actually investing in remote surveillance software. And so people are feeling like, yeah, I'm working from home, but they're feeling like they're being watched. And that is violating almost that need for feeling like you've got your own autonomy and control, your ability to run your own day. And I know during lockdown, when people who were parents were also homeschooling, sometimes the only time to do their work was in the evening. And feeling comfortable and feeling that that's okay to do, that actually you can run your day how you like, that's really comforting to know. But if that's not an environment that's encouraged at work, then that's really difficult for people, because they start to feel guilty or they panic, or and it's not the best place to do your best work from. Now look at this one, the need for attention. If you're somebody who's used to working with, you know, your colleagues day in, day out, and suddenly you're working on your own at home, you're not getting that attention, particularly for people who are sales people. They're not getting that face-to-face interaction and all those little touch points that it's like a form of nutrition, you know, giving and receiving attention with people. Connection and intimacy, that's more to do with relationships. It's not necessarily a partnership. It's more around feeling that you have a connection with other people and that you are accepted for who you are, and you're around like-minded people. Well, again, if you're not with your colleagues, that can be a missing piece as well. And the sense of community, when you're, you know, that again got wiped out overnight. If you're talking to people on Zoom, it's kind of the same, but it's not really the same. So you're beginning to see where we're going with this. Sense of status, you know, a lot of people get their sense of status, their sense of identity through their work. And if you're sitting at home in, you know, whichever room happens to be available that day, and you're not in your office and you're not with your colleagues around you, it kind of feels like, well, who am I here? And then half your day is spent doing maybe, you know, homeschooling as well. It's no wonder you start to sort of question things. Need for privacy and reflection. Now, this is something that, again, if in this industry, a lot of people do travel. And when that all got cancelled, that part got taken away. Now, obviously, when people travel, it's full on, the work is full on, but there are moments when they go back to their hotel room, they've got a little bit of downtime, time to themselves. And that, again, got wiped away. And now people are in households spending time with family, friends maybe, but not in quite the same way that they've been used to. So as you can see, if you've been feeling demotivated, if you've been feeling irritated, if you've been feeling out of sorts for whatever words you've used to describe just not feeling yourself, it's absolutely no surprise at all, because the way that you've been usually getting your human needs met, quite instinctively, quite naturally, has been, a lot of it has just been taken away. So I just wanted to make that point, because it really does make a big difference to how we show up every day. You know, when human needs are not being met, we start to feel tired, exhausted, irritated, defeatist. Our thinking becomes really rigid. And you know what that means when we can't creatively problem solve, we become very stressed out, and we become quite serious. One of the signs I recognize in myself, if I've lost my sense of humor, I know I need to have a little look at things. You know, we become very all or nothing, and we look around and we feel like there's something missing. I don't know what it is. And we feel dissatisfied. And on the flip side, when all our human needs are being met in healthy and balanced ways, well, guess what? All this good stuff, which are all the qualities we need to be a good leader, all the qualities we need to see if you're running an organization or you're running a team, if your team are turning up feeling all of this, motivated, inspired, resilient, adaptable, relaxed, lighthearted, talking about that creative problem solving, satisfied, fulfilled, hopeful. There's not a lot that you can't solve. And even though none of this is about trying to change the circumstances per se, because things are what they are, but the way that we approach them becomes, it's like looking at it through a completely different lens. So you can see it's almost like you get the human needs met, and the happy side effect is all that stuff. So if you took away one main point from today, I'd want to say to you this: you can relax. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not rubbish at your job. You're just not been getting your human needs met in your usual ways. And that's true for you, and it's true for everyone you know too. And I think knowing that is quite a relief. It's just humans doing what humans do when they're not getting all their needs met. But the good news is that just because you've not been getting your human needs met in your usual ways, because let's face it, most of us spend most of our time at work. And so naturally we get a lot of needs met through work. And when a big chunk of that gets taken away, either completely or parts of it, then we need to open that out a little bit and find other ways to meet our needs. So, as I said, you're going to get a copy of this at the end. And I would really suggest or invite you to use this as a bit like a human MOT. There's going to be the copy that you get, you're going to be able to score it from, I've put 0 to 10, but I think it's from 1 to 10. And you go through each one, you think, right, snapshot, where is it all at the moment? Some might be scoring really well, some might be scoring quite not so well. And then it's a case of, right, well, what little changes could I start to make? And knowledge is power. When you know about this stuff, you can do something about it. It's the not knowing that we start to make up, well, what's wrong with me and what's wrong with everyone else around me? But this makes it a really clear lens through which to view it. And when I talk about many eggs, many baskets, it's looking at other ways to do it. So work becomes not the only source of meeting needs, which is actually what you'd want anyway. It's just through habit that we tend to get all our needs met through work. So the more varied you can make it, the stronger your foundation. And I know a lot of people at the beginning of lockdown were sort of making declarations of things they were going to do, languages they were going to learn and hobbies they were going to pick up. And whether that happened or not, I don't know. But again, it's that human instinct coming through. Like, we know we want to do other stuff. It's just work never really gave that much space to do it. So I want to just talk to the leaders here at the moment as well, because if you think of this as a framework through which to approach your part of your role as a leader, what kind of difference do you think that would make? And this is really interesting, because if you create the conditions where people feel like they have a sense of safety and security, and these are just throwing out a few ideas. The beauty of this framework is that there are so many different ideas and ways in which you could approach this, but one might be, one thing I know to be true about all of us as human beings is that we are very, very good when dealing with reality. If we're told the absolute truth of something, we get into action. Right, okay, I know that now. Now I need to get on and do this, this, and this. But when we think there's something up and we're not being told the whole truth, well, we start to make stuff up. And usually the stuff we make up is worse than the reality, but we scare ourselves with the stuff we make up. So if you are in a leadership position and people need that sense of safety and security, the more that you can be clear and honest in your communication with them about what's happening with the organization, the more you're going to get out of people as well. They're not going to be catastrophizing. The need for autonomy and control. I think this is something this industry does really well at, is just letting people run their day. This surveillance, I know that one of the big four got into a bit of, well, were criticised a little bit earlier on in the year, where they had where they were doing this remote surveillance where it did facial recognition when you were sitting at your desk, and it could tell when you weren't at your desk. But allowing people to just, trust, to run your day how you run your day, that does so much for people. Giving and receiving attention. This is a really big one, particularly if you're trying to run a team and you don't have, the only way you're communicating with them is through something like this, through Zoom. The next best thing is to just listen to them, and I know that can take up quite a lot of time, particularly if you've got a large team, but to really listen without any kind of agenda, any kind of judgment, with listening to just find out how people are. And I know this has already been happening, that question, how are you, has never been more meaningful in the last 7 or 8 months. But that when you really take the time to honestly listen, it's like a form of nutrition. It's very nourishing for people. And community, there are 100 different ways to create that sense of community. It requires a bit of creativity and a bit of thinking around how that might happen. But when people, if people are all in their separate silos, but feeling, how can you create that sense of, that deep sense of belonging, so people feel like they're still part of the team, that feeling of community. Before they're a corporation, they're a community, and they feel like every day they're not, it's like the antidote to isolation, basically. Status, really, this is the time to really ramp up the recognition. If you were doing it already, do it even more, highlighting people's strengths and really encouraging that hive mind as well, where it's not all on you as a leader. It's not all on you. Every single person within your team will have good ideas, and when they're encouraged, they'll come up with them as well. And that really comes back to community as well. Privacy and reflection. This is a really interesting one, and it is on you and it's not on you. Bearing in mind that people will be in households where they're not getting much time to themselves. This is again the time to really encourage that people take full lunch breaks, go out, walk in nature, and respect the boundaries as well. If you are, and this sounds such a basic one, and I'm sure you've already done this already, but if you are emailing people in the evenings, it's just saying, just because I'm emailing you doesn't mean you need to come back to me. You have an evening to yourself. And then competence and achievement. And one of the things that really ramped up during lockdown was investment in training and development. And that's been really good to see. And that again is meeting a very, very important need, particularly if people are feeling like they're not achieving in usual ways. So maybe people who've got sales targets are not hitting the ones that they set earlier on in the year, or projects are being cancelled or canned or delayed. That need to still feel like you're achieving something can come through learning new skills and investing in training. And focusing on career goals as well. And meaning and purpose. This is much more of a wider organisation one, but it's when you think about millennials, millennials make up 30% of the population, and by I think it's 2025, they're going to make up 75% of the workforce. So that's just over 4 years' time. They'll make up 75%. And a lot of research done by Deloitte a couple of years ago was around what is it that millennials actually want and need. And a big part of coming to work for them is meaning and purpose, and feeling like the company really embodies the vision and values, that they're not just sort of on a wall somewhere, that you actually feel it when you're working for an organization. So they are just a few ideas, but I mean, you'll come up with different ways and tailored to what you think is right and appropriate. And of course, asking people as well, what does safety and security mean to you? What does community mean to you? People will really love to be asked as well. So in summary, I think what I've taken this from the point of view, rather than directly working on how to boost motivation, how to boost inspiration directly. This is more of a holistic look at it. If you help people, or you create the conditions for people to get their human needs met at work, then the happy side effect is that you get a happier, healthier workplace where people genuinely want to be and they want to do a good job. And as a natural side effect of that, productivity, performance, profit, it just lifts naturally. It's more organic. It's coming at it from a very different place to push harder, work harder, hustle, strive for more. It's coming from a much more organic place. And of course, in the culture of Glassdoor nowadays, where you can see quite clearly what it's like for people to, what the employee experience is like, it's far easier to attract new talent when you've got a place that people feel like their needs are being met. Less burnout, and fewer people leaving as well. So that is, I'm going to hand back to Heather now before we move into the main part of Q&A. And hi, Heather.
Hi. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That was really, really cool. Now, before we go on to talk about the human needs that you were discussing, everyone, if you look in chat around now, you will have a copy of Human Needs for individuals and also for team leaders. You're welcome to download either or both for your personal use, so something to keep you occupied. Right, and also please use the Q&A section, not the chat section, the Q&A section, to post some questions for Sarah in the next couple of minutes, because then we're going to go on to find out what you guys want to find out about from her. Okay, so Sarah, I thought we could have a little chat before we go on to the open Q&A. So what you said about human needs was really interesting, both as a framework for individuals and team leaders. But on leading a team, which of those 9 needs will give me the, out of those, what's a good starting point to get me the quickest gains, get things going fast?
Yeah, where to start, the place that I would always start, particularly from a point of view of leading a team, would be give and receive attention, and particularly giving attention. Because, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's worth mentioning again, that actually to be, that feeling when you are properly, genuinely, honestly listened to, and you feel like you've got the space to actually say what you want to say. And it's amazing when you are really listened to, that a lot of solutions can come to you in the moment. And as a leader, that's what you always want, right? You want your team to be thinking for themselves and coming up with their own solutions. And it's very tempting to try and solve it all for them. But actually, it comes in giving people the space to really be heard and listened. And it's very, very rare, surprisingly rare, to have that. And you can experiment. It's something that we're not used to doing. We're used to kind of be listening and thinking what we're going to say next. We're used to listening and thinking, yeah, but I need to say this thing, or I've got an agenda. I need this person to hear what I've got to say. But actually to just get all of that out the way and go, how are you? What's going on? What do you need today? What do you need to do your job this week? And people they'll tell you, they'll let you know what they need. And that person will come off that call, and maybe later on that day they'll think, you know what, I felt really heard and listened to today. And that does something for people. It really does.
Yeah, because normally the how are you is I'm fine, thank you, and that's all that's expected and wanted normally, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's great people can have a copy of this framework, which is really, really useful, and we'll make sure that people can access that today, or just send me an email if you don't get it or you forget to download it or something like that, and I'll send it on to you. But if someone is looking at this list and they think, I get it, that looks really cool, but I don't even have time to start it, when am I supposed to find time for that on top of everything else? What should they do?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think when you need to go out and do some exercise, and you think, I can't be bothered, I really can't be bothered, and you think, oh, I'll just go and do 10 minutes and then I'll turn around and come back, and you do that and you end up being out for an hour. You ever had that before? Well, it's a bit like this. If we think it's going to be a big, massive project that's going to take up a load of time, which on the face of it might look like that, oh, I've got to make loads of changes, then we're less likely to feel like doing it and make time to do it. But the great news about this, and I'm all for keeping things simple and not, not for people to be doing rituals in order to feel better. I want to make this really simple and incorporate it into people's lives. And what this is literally just, it's a bit like a human MOT, if you like. If you're not feeling 100% yourself, you're not feeling like you're being the best version of yourself at the moment, it's worth having a look at this and thinking, well, like you said earlier, where can I make the biggest gains? Where am I probably scoring low right now? And then if it's like a 2 out of 10, it's a 2 out of 10. That's okay. What do I need to do to maybe bring this up to a 3 or a 4? And do that, and then see what difference that makes. And just, incremental gains is all you need to do. And you don't need to do much in order to feel so much better.
Yeah. Okay.
And the time thing, you're going to say.
Oh, oh,
I
oh
was
no,
just
no,
going
no,
to
no,
say,
carry on,
oh,
carry on. Got time, don't worry.
I was just going to say with the time thing, I know for me, this is a disclosure here now, but I know for me, one of the signs I know if I'm scrolling on my phone, that is a sign to me that I'm probably like just trying to zone out. And I think, what actually could I be doing here that is a bit more meaningful? So I've sort of almost trained myself that if I'm doing meaningless, mindless scrolling on my phone, it's like, okay, that's a sign to go and do, some exercise, or it's a sign to go and, read a book or something. So if we think about how much time we do spend on our phones, even if we just, half of that was switched to doing something a bit more meaningful, then there is time available. It's just kind of how we use it, really.
Yeah, I need to stop doing that at night time, trying to read internet before I go to bed.
Oh yeah. Set up for the nightmares.
Yeah, get ready. I love what you said about community over corporation. I know a lot of us would share those values, and SVG Europe does as well. But what should we do if that ethos is not shared right at the top of our organisation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think if we look at this year, many of from a financial point of view, for many businesses, the goals, the targets that were put in place right at the beginning of the year probably will not, be the results will look very, very different to what was set out January, February time. Mm-hmm. And so naturally there is a need right now to want to push for productivity, to want to push for performance and try and turn the rest of the year around. And I totally understand that. And there's nothing wrong with wanting productivity and performance to go up. There's nothing wrong with pushing for that. The difference is the way in which it's done. And as I talked a little bit earlier on, there's the come on, work harder, strive harder, do more. There's that kind of mentality. And I know that probably many of us have been on the receiving end of that, maybe even push from that place as well. Mm. But there's also what many progressive organizations are beginning to recognize is that, when you strip an organization back, what you've got is a bunch of human beings. And when we treat human beings like robots, they're going to burn out at some point. And if they don't burn out, they're going to leave. But when you treat them like human beings and you work with human nature, not against it, which is what we're pointing to here today, then the productivity and performance just naturally rises anyway. And people are there because they genuinely want to be there and they want to do a good job. It's the same results, but it's from a very different place. And I think, like you said, if it's not always shared from the top, well, if any of what I've talked about, we're talking about now, resonates for you, and you have it within your sphere of influence to just do it anyway, then do it. Because the thing is with people are funny. When you start to see a team working really, really well together, people will look at that, people will notice, and they'll say, well, what's going on with you lot? I want a bit of that. And it's quite infectious, if they're working in a different way and they're getting good results, that will get noticed. So do what you can within your sphere of influence. There's quite a lot that you can still do.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for answering those for me. So we've got a couple of questions from our audience. If you do have any questions, I suggest you write them down now, because otherwise we will not ask them. Right, so our first question for you, Sarah, is from Claudia Vaccaroni. I think that's how you say it. So she says, thank you for this very insightful presentation. However, isn't the whole notion of defining ourselves in light of our job a frail strategy, especially for women?
Defining ourselves in terms of our job. Yeah, and that, I really love that you've picked up on that, actually, because I guess what I'm saying here is that we may have done that up to now. We may not have done, but if we have, I mean, this comes back to what is it that makes for a happy, healthy human being, where we're able to deal with change and deal with challenges. And and that's why we talked about the human needs. Now, a lot of human needs naturally get met through the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
But if some of that has been taken away, and for some people, they may not have a job at the moment. And so what I'm pointing to here is that there is nothing in any of this that says that you have to get all your human needs met through your job. Of course you don't. It's just, this is about how can we feel like the best version of ourselves in order to deal with what we need to deal with right now. Does that answer the question?
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
come back if there's anything else you want to pick up on, for sure.
Cool. Yeah, work takes up so much of your daily life anyway. It kind of does. You have to feel good doing your work, don't you? As well as the bits you can squish around the edges. Second question from Sismon Ramba. I hope I've said that correctly. Probably haven't. Sorry in advance. But giving attention. So how to behave when that opens questions, opens a kind of Pandora's box of questions like complaints, expectations that cannot be met. Should we just listen and end up like, we'll see what we can do, knowing some things can't be changed, or should we argue?
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? And often, whether we're aware of it or not, we almost don't want to ask someone how someone is, because we think, gosh, you know, there may be things that come up that I just can't solve for them, or I can't help them with right now. And there's quite a lot to that, actually. The first thing is, don't be afraid of people complaining. There is a need. If someone hasn't been listened to and they've got all this, you can imagine someone's got all this stuff going around their head from the moment they wake up in the morning to the moment they go to bed. It's just noise. And someone says, how are you? It's like, oh, you almost feel like crying, don't you? It's like, oh, you're being nice, you know. But actually, don't be afraid of someone. That there's almost stuff that needs to get out first, and they may complain, but then they'll get to a point where they'll say, oh, that feels better, I just needed to say that stuff, right? And then when you get to that point, and there's no rhyme or reason around when that point happens, it might be a couple of minutes, it might be 10 minutes, then they'll be in a much more relaxed state of mind, and then you're able to ask, because as a leader you're also a coach, right? And if you ask problem focused questions, you'll get more problems. The conversation will turn towards problems. But if you start to steer it more around solution focused conversation, you'll get solutions coming through. I didn't say that very well, but you know what I mean. And so when they've said what they need to say, they will know. When you say, look, there's many things I can't change, there's many things none of us can change right now, but what is it that you need to do? You know, often the question is, what is it that you need to do your job today? What is it that you need to do your job this week? What is it that you need? And then people will know what you can and can't do. There's so much that you know, they'll say, oh, I'm not expecting you to change that and that, but I just wanted, you know. So I think, yeah, if you come at it from a place of don't be afraid of people complaining, that's natural, that's really human, and then very solution focused questions. What do you need? What difference would it make if we could do this and this for you? And that will then start to get people moving in the right direction. And it doesn't always get done in one conversation. It could be like, let's talk again in 2 days' time, see how you're doing then, you know. And sometimes you don't have to come up with the solutions at all. They just needed a good listening to.
And from the other side of that, if you're the person who's saying, I would like to talk to you, boss, I'm looking up because there's a pecking order. If you want to talk to your boss and say, look, these are my issues, you know, I want some time, I want to do this, I want to do that, and they just go, okay, we'll see what we can do. And in English, we know that means no, I'm just going to ignore that. You know, if people are literally ignoring your needs and your help, what you require, what do you do then? You know, you have to create a little bubble around yourself, or what?
Yeah. Well, that is a really difficult one. If you're genuinely not being listened to, and it's happened a few times, if it starts with being really, really clear about what you need as well. If you can be, the more specific you can be about what you need and want, and checking out that it is realistic as well. And you've been clear and specific, and you've said what you need and want, and it's not happening the first time, the second time, the third time. Well, there are then channels you can go through that because you can't just you know see how the organization is set up or how things are set up, but it may be that it does need a conversation with somebody else. It's really difficult though, isn't it? Because you think, oh, I don't want to look like I'm making a fuss. But if you are being really clear and you've given someone enough times and chances, and it depends what kind of relationship you have as well with your boss. Some people you can say, look, I feel like I'm not being heard here, and others you feel like you just can't say it. So it's very much, it's a difficult one. But again, just be as clear and specific as you can and work out what you need.
Sure. Great. Okay. And one from Lara Bishop here. She says she's the only female on the senior management team in her company, and while she's aware of the emotional needs of the team that she directly manages, she's found that over the pandemic, a lot of the men in the senior management team have had the head down, troop on attitude, which is common. A lot of people, it is a case of just try and get through this. I feel that some of the other teams I don't manage, obviously under different leadership, aren't getting the emotional support that they could get. Is there anything she can do, I guess, within the management team to kind of spread kind of some sort of teaching kind of methods or something?
Yeah, and there are differences in the way that men and women do respond to challenges. They and this has been shown in the brain, that men can very much are very much solution focused, compartmentalize what needs doing, and will get on with it. And actually what we're saying here with the human needs is that is a very much a solution focused model. It's, if you come at it from the place of figuring out what do people want in organizations, what do leaders want? Well, they want their team to perform well. They want them to be productive. They want them to enjoy working. No one would say they want people to come to work and not enjoy work. And if you come at it from what is it what is the hook? What is it that people want? And coming at it from that point, well, this is a framework that can help them get that. And try it that way. I think it's the way that you say it. And I think with Wellbeing, it's an interesting one, because since COVID, it has definitely got much more airtime. But in some circles, it can still be seen as a bit woo-woo if it's not presented in the right way. But ultimately, what we're talking about here today is, how do you have happy, healthy employees who produce good work, feel good, and perform well, and ultimately help the business have healthy, profitable bottom line as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And last question from you, from one of the opposite sex, Hamish Murray says, any thoughts or tips on how to listen well? Which is a good one, I think.
The first tip is to practice it, and practice it where it sort of doesn't matter so much. So practice it maybe if outside of work, first of all. So maybe with friends you're chatting to, or with your partner, and try it out. And it can feel really odd when you first start doing it, but it's like, someone once described it as, you're like a rock with ears. You're literally just sitting there, and you're still, and you're listening to them, and you'll find thoughts come in. It's a bit like when you're watching a really good film and you're gripped, and a thought comes in about an email you didn't send, and you think, oh, forget it, I'm not thinking about that now, I'm watching a film. It's not even that, it's just, and it's like that with listening to somebody. You listen to everything that they're saying, and after a while you're just in there, you're in the zone with them. And we've all had that experience as well, that when you're perhaps in the early days of a relationship, and you're like hanging on their every word, it's that kind of listening again. And it's the interesting thing is they will feel it. They will really feel it, that they're being heard and listened to, and you'll see a change in their body language as well. So yeah, I would say practice it, try it out. You won't always get it right, but when you do, you'll know it. And the whole outcome can be completely different.
Cool. I've taken away, be a rock with ears.
Yeah.
I like that. Perfect. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you again so much, Sarah. It's been really great having you on again, and we're going to do this again. I've got February earmarked for you, so
February,
thank you. It's really, really helpful, really, really useful stuff to have access to, and thank you. So yeah, can't wait till the next one. So thank you also to our first supporter sponsor, CTV Outside Broadcasts. Couldn't do this sort of thing without you guys. If you want to learn more about how to become a supporter of SVG Europe Women Virtual, please get in touch with me and I'll tell you what you need to know. Also, please take a look at the SVG Europe website and click on the Women tab, because it's all new. It looks fantastic. It's got lots of fun stuff on there, lots of cool stuff on there, including all about our broadcast supporters. But there's more to come over the next few weeks. I will be nudging someone to make those extra pages for me. But yeah, it looks excellent. You'll love it. And please keep an eye out for more news on our next event. We've got 2 more before the end of the year. So it's going to be good. And the last one is going to be in some form of big hangout with alcohol, which we all like. Obviously, it won't be at 10 a.m. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks again to Sarah, and see you next time.